It's been a windy day here in the Pyrenees today. Breezy. Probably a good, if not very challenging day for tailwheel flying. Tailwheel landings, anyway. Well, it got me thinking about taildraggers in general, and in particular, how and when and where taildraggers played a role in my flying activities. Hey, I'm Wolf. I'm a retired physicist and a glider and tailwheel pilot. Well, if gliders qualified as taildraggers, most of the hours in my logbook would be tailwheel hours. But today, I don't want to talk about aircraft without an engine. So the first time I ever got my hand on a real taildragger, and that was a Cessna 170, was just a couple of days before I moved back to Europe after 3.5 years as a postdoc in the US. Unfortunately, at that time, I couldn't complete my checkout because the weather turned bad and I was just, busy with my move. So when I got back to Europe, power flying completely dropped off my radar because it was just too expensive and too complicated compared to what I had gotten used to in the US. So the next time I really got my hands on a real taildragger, during the first of what I would call my soaring for science adventures. And it was a motor glider, a high-performance motor glider actually. Well, they call them touring motor gliders, and that means that they don't use the engine only to take off, they use it also for cruise. And it was a high-performance machine, as a glider as well as a power plane. It had a 115 horse turbocharged Rotax engine. It had a retractable prop with variable pitch, retractable gear, and a glide ratio of almost 50:1. I get checked out in it at the factory in Germany, and then I flew it a number of hours for this project in Colorado. It was great fun, a great machine to fly. And at the same time, a fellow member of the Soaring Society of Boulder would call me up every once in a while and invite me to join him on a flight in his Piper Supercruiser. So there, at least, I got a couple of hours and a few landings in a real taildragger. Luck would have it that for our soaring expedition to Argentina to study and use mountain waves over the Andes, we used the same motor glider, the same STEMI S10 as it is called. Now there in Argentina, mountain waves means a lot of wind. So you might imagine that there were some landings that were really challenging. To put that bird down safely, the bird with a 75-foot wingspan and narrow stance gear, it took all your attention. You had to be really on your toes. But again, challenge, fun. Also in Argentina, an old boyhood dream of mine resurfaced. And the dream was to fly across the US in a taildragger, preferably in a Cessna 170, camp under the wing, and do something like a barnstormer kind of trip. And before I really wanted to get into that project, I needed to find out how much time and money it would take to become a proficient and competent taildragger pilot, because so far I really hadn't done that step. So I looked around, asked some friends, and it turned out that one of my soaring buddies, he also was the member of a flying club close to Buenos Aires. And he invited me to come and fly with one of their instructors in one of their J3s. And that's what I did. Drove out there, flew with Leo in this beautifully maintained J3. And after 2 hours, Leo said, "Well, Wolf, you're doing really great. You won't have any problems in stepping up to your 170. Well, great, wasn't it? So now I could think about the next step on my way to realizing my dream. And the next step, of course, would be to get the real tailwheel endorsement on my US glider license. And I got that a couple of years later on a visit to the US in Poplar Grove, and the icing on the cake was that I got it in a Cessna 140, the little sister of the 170 that I really wanted so badly to have for my trip. Now that I had the tailwheel endorsement, I could really start in earnest to think about the next phases of this project. And as you might imagine, I will show you in a couple more videos how that project went. So thanks for watching, and come back to join me on my trip to realize the boyhood dream. See you later.